Most people see the Taj Mahal as a love story carved in marble, a monument of beauty, symmetry, and devotion. But monuments do not rise from love alone. They rise from power, from control, from systems capable of bending time, labor, and human lives into stone. The Taj Mahal did not simply honor grief, it transformed imperial authority into permanence. It turned thousands of unseen hands into silence, and it converted human effort into an illusion of eternity. This is not a story about romance. It is a story about what empires are willing to spend and who ultimately pays the price when power decides to make itself immortal. At dawn, when the Yamuna River still carries the cool breath of night, the Taj Mahal emerges not as a monument, but as an atmosphere. Its white marble does not announce power through mass or height alone. Instead, it governs through balance, symmetry, and controlled stillness. The complex unfolds with deliberate restraint, the forecourt preparing the body for transition, the garden imposing a measured geometry upon nature, the reflecting pools slowing the eye, disciplining perception. Long before the mausoleum itself is reached, movement has already been choreographed. Space here is not neutral. It instructs, it quiets, it persuades. The Taj Mahal was designed not merely to be seen, but to be experienced as an ordered world, one in which the authority of empire feels natural, inevitable, and serene. Commissioned in the 17th century by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, the Taj Mahal stands at the height of Mughal imperial confidence. This was a court that understood architecture as a language of rule. From Agra Fort to the great congregational mosques, Mughal space was carefully calibrated to express hierarchy, permanence, and divine favor. The Taj Mahal belongs fully to this tradition, yet it also refines it. Unlike fortresses or palaces built for governance and defense, this structure speaks through absence. There are no walls thick with soldiers, no battlements, no overt symbols of coercion. Power here is conveyed through control of proportion, material, and silence. The building's authority lies in how effortlessly it commands attention, how completely it frames the landscape around it, and how subtly it defines who may approach, who may linger, and who must remain distant. The central mausoleum rests upon a raised marble platform, a spatial decision that carries meaning beyond aesthetics. Elevation has long been associated with sovereignty, but at the Taj Mahal, height is paired with vulnerability. The structure is exposed to the open sky, reflected endlessly in water, its perfect symmetry dependent upon constant maintenance and vigilance. This vulnerability is not accidental. It mirrors the Mughal conception of imperial legitimacy as something both divinely sanctioned and perpetually demonstrated. The emperor's authority was not hidden behind walls. It was displayed, refined, and repeated through ritual, ceremony, and monumental form. The Taj Mahal transforms grief into governance, mourning into a public assertion of order. Shah Jahan's reign coincided with the Mughal Empire's vast territorial reach and administrative sophistication. Revenue flowed from agrarian systems that stretched across northern India, sustained by taxation structures refined over generations. The Taj Mahal's construction, begun in 1632 and continuing for more than 2 decades, was made possible by this imperial machinery. Marble was transported from Makrana, hundreds of kilometers away. Precious stones arrived from Central Asia, Persia, and beyond. Skilled artisans were drawn from across the empire and neighboring regions, including stonecutters, calligraphers, masons, and engineers. Each component of the building reflects a network of labor and extraction that extended far beyond the banks of the Yamuna. Yet the architecture itself remains silent on these networks. The inscriptions that adorn the marble speak of paradise, eternity, and divine mercy. Quranic verses ascend the great Iwan portals, their calligraphy subtly increasing in scale to preserve visual harmony when viewed from below. This technical brilliance reinforces the illusion of effortless perfection. The building does not reveal the human systems that sustained it. Instead, it presents an image of seamless unity, as if empire itself were a natural extension of cosmic order. This is the quiet genius of imperial monumentality. It conceals complexity behind clarity and cost behind beauty. The garden, laid out in the classical charbagh pattern, further reinforces this effect. Divided into 4 quadrants by water channels, the garden evokes the Islamic vision of paradise, a controlled and eternal landscape untouched by decay. But here, paradise is not placed beyond the world, it is imposed upon it. The Yamuna, a living river subject to flood and erosion, is harnessed into alignment with architectural symmetry. Nature is not erased, but disciplined. The message is unmistakable. Under imperial authority, disorder is corrected, time is slowed, and impermanence is momentarily suspended. As the sun rises higher, the marble shifts in color, responding to light rather than resisting it. This responsiveness gives the illusion of gentleness, masking the rigidity beneath. The Taj Mahal appears almost fragile, yet it is the product of extraordinary control over resources, labor, and territory. Its beauty is inseparable from its scale, and its scale from the empire that sustained it. In this way, the monument does not simply commemorate a personal loss. It encodes a political reality, one in which imperial power could afford to translate private mourning into a project of enduring global significance. The Taj Mahal's authority does not lie in what it declares, but in what it normalizes. It invites admiration without explanation, reverence without context. Visitors are drawn into its rhythm, its measured paths and controlled vistas, long before questions of cost or consequence arise. This is architecture performing its most refined function, shaping memory while erasing process, presenting outcome without struggle. The monument stands serene, while the systems that produced it recede into abstraction. It is within this silence that the true historical weight of the Taj Mahal begins to emerge, not as an isolated masterpiece, but as the visible surface of an imperial economy that transformed human effort into stone, symmetry, and permanence. To understand the Taj Mahal fully requires moving beyond its surface harmony into the structures of labor, extraction, and discipline that made such harmony possible. That journey begins not with the emperor, nor with the marble dome, but with the countless lives whose work remains unnamed, yet permanently embedded within its walls. Beneath the polished marble and calibrated symmetry of the Taj Mahal lies an administrative reality that defined the Mughal Empire at its height. Monumental architecture of this scale was never an isolated act of devotion or aesthetics. It was the visible outcome of a complex fiscal system designed to extract agricultural surplus from millions of cultivators across northern India. The Mughal state did not rely primarily on coinage minted from precious metals drawn from overseas trade. Its true foundation was land revenue. Through carefully surveyed territories and standardized assessments, the empire converted harvests into cash flows capable of sustaining armies, courts, and projects of extraordinary ambition. The Taj Mahal was one such project, and its construction unfolded within this machinery with bureaucratic precision. Revenue assessments under Shah Jahan were largely based on systems refined during the reign of Akbar, which sought to quantify agricultural output and stabilize taxation. While these reforms are often described as rational or efficient, they were also exacting. Peasants bore the primary burden, subject to fixed obligations regardless of flood, drought, or local instability. The funds that financed marble transport, artisan wages, and court supervision were drawn from this agrarian base. The Taj Mahal, for all its spiritual language, was inseparable from this material reality. Each stone laid upon its platform represented a portion of surplus redirected from subsistence into permanence. Labor, too, was organized through imperial reach. Contemporary Mughal sources and later historical reconstructions indicate that tens of thousands of workers participated in various phases of construction. These included skilled artisans, many highly paid and professionally mobile, as well as unskilled laborers whose conditions were far more precarious. Stonecutters from Rajasthan, calligraphers trained in Persian traditions, and engineers versed in hydraulic systems all converge at Agra. Their presence reflects the empire's capacity to mobilize expertise across vast distances. Yet this mobility was unevenly distributed. While elite artisans could gain status and patronage, the majority of laborers remained anonymous, their contributions absorbed into the anonymity of the finished form. The organization of work followed strict hierarchies. Master builders and imperial supervisors controlled schedules, materials, and methods, ensuring conformity to the emperor's vision. Deviations were corrected swiftly. The Taj Mahal's famed symmetry was not merely aesthetic, it was administrative. Balance in stone reflected balance in command. Laborers were interchangeable units within a larger design, valued for output rather than identity. This structure allowed the project to continue uninterrupted for years, even as political pressures mounted elsewhere in the empire. Cost, while difficult to quantify precisely in modern terms, was immense by contemporary standards. Mughal chronicles and later economic historians estimate expenditures that, when adjusted for scale and purchasing power, represented a substantial portion of imperial revenue over 2 decades. This investment occurred during a period when military campaigns, court expenditures, and infrastructural maintenance already strained resources. The Taj Mahal did not bankrupt the Mughal Empire, but it participated in a broader pattern of imperial spending that prioritized symbolic authority alongside territorial control. Monumentality was not excess, it was policy. Material acquisition further reveals this logic. Marble from Makrana was selected not only for its luminosity, but for its durability and imperial association. Transporting it required elaborate logistics, including animal caravans and river barges. Precious stones, jade, lapis lazuli, carnelian, and jasper, were sourced through long-distance trade networks connecting South Asia to Central Asia and the Middle East. These networks were sustained by imperial stability, but also by unequal exchanges that favored the court. The Taj Mahal thus embodied global connections shaped by power, not reciprocity. Even the Yamuna River, often romanticized as a tranquil backdrop, was integral to the system. Its waters facilitated transport and cooling, while its banks anchored the complex within the urban fabric of Agra. Engineers developed subterranean wells and pressure systems to sustain fountains and reflecting pools. These technologies required constant maintenance, binding future generations to the monument's survival. Monumentality, once built, demands perpetuation. The Taj Mahal created obligations that extended far beyond Shah Jahan's lifetime. As construction progressed, the emperor's personal circumstances changed. Political tensions intensified within the royal family, culminating in Shah Jahan's eventual deposition by his son Aurangzeb. From the Red Fort of Agra, Shah Jahan spent his final years confined, gazing across the river toward the mausoleum he had commissioned. This image has often been rendered in romantic tones, yet it also underscores the fragile relationship between personal authority and imperial structure. The Taj Mahal outlived the ruler who ordered it, continuing to draw resources for upkeep even as the empire's priorities shifted. In this way, the Taj Mahal reveals a paradox at the heart of imperial monumentality. It was built to transcend time, yet it depended upon continuous extraction from the present. Its serenity masks the ongoing labor required to preserve it, and its harmony conceals the inequalities embedded in its creation. The human price of the monument was not paid once, but repeatedly through generations bound to sustain its form. To approach the Taj Mahal only as an expression of love or artistry is to accept the narrative it offers on its own terms. To see it historically is to recognize the empire that made such expression possible and the many lives organized, disciplined, and consumed in the service of an enduring image. The monument's beauty remains unquestionable. Its cost, however, was not confined to marble and gems. It was born in time, labor, and lives, dispersed across an empire that converted human effort into stone permanence. As decades passed, the Taj Mahal gradually shifted from an active imperial project into a stabilized symbol. But this transition did not diminish its demands. Monumental architecture does not conclude with completion. It enters a second life defined by maintenance, interpretation, and control. For the Mughal state, preserving the Taj Mahal became an act of continuity, reinforcing legitimacy through custodianship of inherited grandeur. The monument's endurance required gardeners to tend its disciplined vegetation, engineers to monitor water systems, and administrators to oversee repairs. These roles rarely appear in celebratory narratives, yet they form the invisible infrastructure that allowed the Taj Mahal to retain its authority long after the last stone was set. Under Aurangzeb, imperial priorities shifted markedly. Expansionist warfare in the Deccan, coupled with increasing administrative strain, redirected resources away from symbolic projects toward military necessity. The Taj Mahal, while still respected, no longer occupied the emotional or political center it once had. Its upkeep continued, but without the intensity of its founding years. This subtle reallocation reveals a critical aspect of imperial monumentality. Monuments endure physically, but their meaning is contingent on political will. When the empire's focus moved, the Taj Mahal's role transformed from an active assertion of power into a relic of a previous imperial philosophy. By the 18th century, as Mughal authority weakened and regional powers asserted autonomy, the Taj Mahal entered a period of neglect. Accounts from travelers and administrators describe gardens falling into disrepair and decorative elements suffering from erosion and theft. Precious stones were occasionally removed, fountains ceased to function as intended, and the carefully balanced environment began to fray. This deterioration was not merely physical, it reflected the erosion of the centralized systems that had once sustained such precision. Without empire, monumentality loses its scaffolding. The arrival of British colonial rule introduced a new layer of interpretation and control. For colonial administrators, the Taj Mahal represented both a marvel of craftsmanship and a testament to what they framed as the excesses of Oriental despotism. British writings often praised the monument's beauty while implicitly contrasting it with their own ideals of economic rationality and governance. Restoration efforts in the 19th century, particularly under Lord Curzon, sought to stabilize the structure and restore its gardens to an imagined original state. These interventions preserved the monument, but they also reshaped its meaning, filtering Mughal imperial ambition through colonial aesthetics and priorities. Colonial restoration carried its own human costs. Labor once again flowed into the site, now under a different regime of authority. Indian workers maintained the gardens and repaired marble under colonial supervision, while the narrative of the Taj Mahal shifted toward universal heritage rather than imperial assertion. The monument was recast as timeless art, abstracted from the political economy that produced it. This reframing softened its edges, making it palatable as a symbol of cultural achievement rather than a reminder of imperial extraction. In the modern era, the Taj Mahal occupies yet another role: global icon and national emblem. Millions of visitors arrive each year, their experience carefully managed through pathways, security protocols, and conservation regulations. Tourism has introduced new forms of labor and new forms of cost. Environmental degradation, pollution, and infrastructural pressure threaten the marble's surface, requiring constant scientific intervention. Conservation teams monitor discoloration and erosion, while surrounding communities negotiate the economic benefits and restrictions imposed by heritage preservation. The human price of the Taj Mahal thus continues to evolve. Where once it drew upon agrarian surplus and imperial command, it now relies on modern bureaucracies, scientific expertise, and service labor. Its maintenance demands public funding and regulatory authority, binding contemporary society to decisions made nearly 4 centuries ago. The monument's permanence is sustained through continuous human effort, a reminder that monumentality is never static. It survives only by being continually reasserted. Seen across time, the Taj Mahal becomes less a frozen symbol of love or grief and more a living system. Its meaning has shifted from imperial devotion to colonial spectacle to national heritage, yet each phase carries its own forms of discipline and obligation. The building's serenity endures, but it is upheld by structures that remain largely unseen. This continuity of hidden labor mirrors the original conditions of its creation, reinforcing the central truth of imperial monumentality. Beauty and authority are inseparable from the human systems that sustain them. To stand before the Taj Mahal today is to encounter not only a masterpiece of architecture, but the accumulated weight of centuries of governance, labor, and interpretation. Its marble reflects light as it always has, but beneath that surface lies a history shaped by extraction, maintenance, and power. The monument's endurance is undeniable. So too is the human price embedded within its stillness, carried forward through time, quietly shaping how the past continues to inhabit the present. As the 20th century progressed, the Taj Mahal became increasingly entangled with modern ideas of nationhood, identity, and historical ownership. No longer the possession of an emperor or a colonial administration, it was absorbed into the symbolic framework of the Indian state. This transition did not free the monument from power, it relocated power into new institutions, new narratives, and new forms of control. The Taj Mahal was now tasked with representing continuity across rupture, suggesting an unbroken civilizational inheritance despite the profound political transformations that had occurred around it. In this new context, the monument's Mughal origins were selectively emphasized or muted depending on prevailing political climates. As a structure commissioned by a Muslim emperor in a predominantly Hindu-majority nation, the Taj Mahal occupied a sensitive position within debates over cultural legitimacy and historical memory. At times, it was celebrated as a universal masterpiece, transcending religion and dynasty. At other moments, its imperial Islamic origins became a source of discomfort or contestation. These debates were not abstract. They shaped funding priorities, educational narratives, and public discourse, revealing how monuments continue to function as instruments through which societies negotiate power long after empires collapse. The Taj Mahal's integration into global heritage frameworks further transformed its meaning. Designation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site formalized its status as a monument belonging not only to India, but to humanity at large. This universalization carried prestige, but it also imposed new constraints. Preservation guidelines, tourism management plans, and international scrutiny redefined how the site could be used, altered, or narrated. Local agency became intertwined with global expectations, and decisions about conservation were increasingly shaped by external standards of authenticity and value. This global attention intensified the pressures already bearing down on the structure. Air pollution from nearby industries and vehicular traffic threatened the marble's surface, prompting the creation of the Taj Trapezium Zone and the relocation or regulation of polluting activities. These measures protected the monument, but they also displaced economic activity and reshaped livelihoods in the surrounding region. Once again, preservation extracted a price, not from distant agrarian taxpayers, but from contemporary communities whose lives were reorganized in service of an inherited symbol. Tourism amplified these dynamics. The Taj Mahal became one of the most visited sites in the world, its image reproduced endlessly in media, souvenirs, and state branding. This visibility generated revenue and employment, yet it also imposed regimes of surveillance and control. Timed entry tickets, restricted movement, and security infrastructure disciplined visitor behavior, ensuring that the experience of the monument remained orderly and predictable. Even awe was managed. The visitor's encounter was carefully curated, much as movement had been choreographed in the 17th century. The logic of spatial authority persisted, adapted to new purposes. The monument's role in shaping memory became increasingly apparent. For many visitors, the Taj Mahal stands isolated from the historical systems that produced it. Encountered as a self-contained object of beauty, the narratives most commonly attached to it emphasize romance, devotion, and artistic genius, while minimizing the imperial economy that sustained its creation. This selective memory is not accidental. It reflects a broader tendency to aestheticize power once it is no longer threatening, transforming domination into heritage and extraction into legacy. Yet the structure itself resists complete abstraction. Its scale, its precision, and its dependence on constant care quietly testify to the magnitude of coordination required to sustain it. Every conservation effort, every controlled pathway, and every restricted zone echoes the original conditions of its creation. The Taj Mahal endures because society continues to accept the premise that certain forms of beauty warrant disproportionate investment. This acceptance binds the present to the past, reaffirming hierarchies of value rooted in imperial logic. In this light, the human price of the Taj Mahal is not a closed account. It has shifted forms across centuries, from agrarian surplus and coerced labor to regulatory displacement and service economies. The monument's calm exterior conceals an ongoing negotiation between admiration and obligation, reverence and cost. Its endurance depends not on timelessness, but on continuous human intervention, guided by decisions that reflect contemporary priorities as much as historical inheritance. The Taj Mahal thus stands as more than a memorial to loss or love. It is a case study in how power materializes itself in stone, survives political collapse, and adapts to new regimes without relinquishing its authority. To confront it honestly is not to diminish its beauty, but to recognize that beauty itself can be a function of unequal systems, sustained by human effort that remains largely invisible. The monument's stillness invites reflection, but that reflection gains depth only when it includes the lives, labor, and landscapes shaped in its shadow. By the early 21st century, the Taj Mahal had become so thoroughly absorbed into global consciousness that its physical presence seemed almost secondary to its symbolic weight. Images of the monument circulate far more widely than the structure itself, detached from geography and history, flattened into an icon of beauty and romance. This circulation has consequences. When a monument becomes ubiquitous, its authority shifts from physical domination of space to psychological occupation of imagination. The Taj Mahal no longer needs to command through proximity. It governs through repetition, through familiarity so complete that questioning its origins can feel almost inappropriate. Yet beneath this familiarity lies a growing tension between preservation and endurance. The marble that once appeared eternal is now understood as vulnerable. Scientific studies document gradual discoloration, microfractures, and surface erosion caused by pollution, moisture, and human contact. Conservation has become increasingly technical, reliant on chemical treatments, environmental controls, and constant monitoring. These interventions reveal an uncomfortable truth. The Taj Mahal survives not because it is timeless, but because it is perpetually rescued from time. This rescue carries moral and political implications. Public funds are repeatedly allocated to preserve a structure born of imperial hierarchy, while contemporary social needs compete for the same resources. Debates over allocation are often framed as culture versus development, heritage versus necessity. Yet this framing obscures the deeper continuity at work. Monumental preservation replicates imperial priorities by privileging symbolic capital over lived conditions. The Taj Mahal continues to receive disproportionate attention because it embodies an idea of greatness that societies remain reluctant to relinquish. The surrounding region bears this burden unevenly. Restrictions imposed to protect the monument limit industrial activity, regulate transportation, and constrain urban growth. While these measures safeguard marble and water systems, they also reshape economic opportunity. Residents navigate a landscape where daily life is subordinated to the needs of a structure they do not own, but are expected to revere. The monument's authority thus persists, not through decree, but through regulatory presence. It remains a center around which human activity must orbit. International tourism intensifies this asymmetry. Visitors arrive seeking transcendence, often unaware that their presence accelerates the very degradation preservation seeks to prevent. Foot traffic wears stone pathways. Breath, moisture, and touch alter interior surfaces. Management responds with further controls, further separations between monument and populace. The Taj Mahal becomes increasingly insulated, both physically and symbolically, elevated above ordinary life. This separation mirrors the original imperial logic that placed the mausoleum upon a raised platform, distinct from the world that sustained it. Historical interpretation follows a similar pattern. Official narratives emphasize universality and harmony, presenting the Taj Mahal as a shared human achievement rather than a product of specific power relations. While this approach fosters global appreciation, it also smooths over historical inequalities. The emperor's grief becomes central. The laborer's endurance fades into abstraction. Monumentality, once again, succeeds by narrowing the frame of attention. Yet the structure itself quietly resists complete sanitization. Its scale remains overwhelming. Its precision continues to suggest an authority that transcends individual intention. Standing before it, one confronts the undeniable fact that such beauty required an extraordinary concentration of resources in the hands of a few. This recognition does not negate admiration, but it complicates it. The Taj Mahal asks viewers to reconcile aesthetic reverence with historical accountability. Across centuries, the human price of the Taj Mahal has shifted, but never disappeared. It has been paid by peasants whose surplus funded its construction, by laborers whose names were never recorded, by administrators bound to maintain it, and by communities whose lives are shaped by its preservation. The monument endures because societies continue to agree, implicitly or explicitly, that such costs are acceptable. This agreement is rarely articulated, yet it underpins every decision to conserve, restore, and protect. In this sense, the Taj Mahal functions as a mirror. It reflects not only the values of the Mughal court that created it, but the values of every society that has chosen to preserve it. Each generation reaffirms its importance, accepting the obligations that come with inheritance. Monumentality thus becomes a continuous process rather than a finished act, binding past and present through shared responsibility. To understand the Taj Mahal fully is to recognize this continuity. Its marble surface captures light with serene indifference, yet its existence is inseparable from human effort across time. The monument's beauty endures, but so does its cost. The human price of imperial monumentality is not confined to history. It is renewed each day. The Taj Mahal is allowed to stand unchanged at the center of collective imagination. The Taj Mahal's continued dominance within historical imagination raises a question that extends beyond its marble walls. What does it mean for a society to inherit a monument whose creation depended upon systems it no longer openly endorses, yet continues to replicate in altered form? The answer lies not in condemnation or celebration alone, but in understanding how monumentality reshapes ethical distance. Time softens judgment. Distance aestheticizes power. What once required coercion and command is gradually reinterpreted as culture, then as heritage, until the conditions of its creation seem irrelevant to its preservation. This process is not unique to the Taj Mahal, but the monument offers an unusually clear case. Its purpose was never ambiguous. It was meant to endure, to be seen, to outlast political rivals, and even memory itself. Shah Jahan did not commission a private tomb hidden from view. He ordered a structure that commanded one of the empire's most visible riverfronts, aligned with the geometry of authority, and integrated into the ceremonial landscape of Agra. The Taj Mahal was always intended to speak beyond its moment, and in this sense its success is complete. It continues to speak. The question is what it says now. Modern audiences often approach the monument seeking emotional transcendence rather than historical confrontation. The Taj Mahal offers a rare experience of stillness in an accelerated world. Its symmetry slows perception. Its scale invites silence. This psychological effect is real, and it explains much of the monument's enduring appeal. Yet this stillness is not neutral. It is the product of order imposed at scale, an order that required the coordination of human lives toward a single, overriding vision. The calm the monument produces today is inseparable from the discipline that produced it centuries ago. This recognition does not reduce the Taj Mahal to exploitation alone. The Mughal Empire was not uniquely brutal in its mobilization of labor or extraction of resources. It operated within norms shared by many early modern states. But the monument's extraordinary refinement forces a confrontation with the relationship between beauty and inequality. The Taj Mahal demonstrates that the most admired cultural achievements are often those most dependent on asymmetrical power. Its perfection is not accidental. It is the visible trace of authority functioning without interruption. The endurance of the monument also reveals how power adapts to moral change. While modern societies reject absolute monarchy and hereditary empire, they continue to preserve the artifacts those systems produced. This preservation is framed as stewardship rather than submission, yet it still requires prioritization. Time, money, and expertise are devoted to ensuring that the monument remains untouched by decay. In doing so, contemporary institutions inherit not only the structure, but the logic that some symbols are worth more than others, some histories more worthy of survival. Educational narratives often attempt to reconcile this tension by emphasizing artistic achievement while acknowledging historical context in abstract terms. This balance, while well-intentioned, can obscure causality. The Taj Mahal was not simply enabled by empire, it was one of empire's expressions. Its existence reinforced the very hierarchies that funded it, shaping perceptions of legitimacy and permanence. To separate the monument from these conditions is to misunderstand its function. Standing at the edge of the reflecting pool, the viewer encounters a carefully constructed illusion of timelessness. The monument appears unchanged, immune to the contingencies of history. Yet every aspect of its survival contradicts this illusion. Pollution controls, restricted zones, restoration budgets, and conservation science all testify to fragility. The Taj Mahal endures because it is continually defended against the world that surrounds it. This defense is not passive, it is an active choice repeated across administrations, generations, and political systems. In this repetition lies the monument's most revealing lesson. Imperial monumentality does not end when empires fall. It persists through inheritance, admiration, and institutional commitment. The Taj Mahal no longer serves a reigning emperor, yet it continues to command resources, attention, and obedience to rules of access and preservation. Its authority has been transformed, not dissolved. The human price, therefore, is not confined to the past. It is embedded in present choices about what to protect, what to neglect, and how to define collective value. Each act of conservation affirms that the monument remains central, that its beauty outweighs competing claims. This affirmation is rarely questioned because it is wrapped in reverence. But reverence itself is a form of power, guiding behavior without coercion. The Taj Mahal stands today as a testament to human capability and to the structures that channel that capability unevenly. It is neither an indictment nor an absolution. It is a record. Its marble walls preserve not only memory, but decisions about authority, labor, and permanence that continue to echo long after their original context has vanished. To engage with the Taj Mahal honestly is to accept this complexity. The monument does not demand rejection, it demands recognition. Recognition that beauty can coexist with imbalance, recognition that admiration carries responsibility, recognition that the legacy of imperial monumentality survives not because it is imposed, but because it is continually chosen. As the Taj Mahal continues to occupy a central place in global consciousness, its presence invites a deeper reflection on the endurance of imperial aesthetics in a post-imperial world. Long after the Mughal court dissolved, the monument remains capable of shaping expectations about what greatness looks like, what authority feels like, and what forms of human effort are deemed worthy of preservation. This influence is subtle but pervasive. It appears in how societies measure cultural value, in how resources are allocated toward conservation, and in how silence is often mistaken for neutrality. The Taj Mahal's visual language remains remarkably effective. Its symmetry reassures. Its whiteness suggests purity. Its isolation on the riverbank conveys transcendence. These qualities encourage viewers to approach the monument emotionally rather than analytically. The structure offers no immediate cues that invite inquiry into its social cost. Instead, it produces an experience that feels complete in itself. This is not incidental. Imperial architecture was designed to limit the range of interpretation, guiding perception toward awe and away from scrutiny. That design continues to function as intended. Within academic and curatorial circles, efforts have been made to reintroduce complexity into the monument's story. Museum exhibitions, scholarly publications, and guided interpretations increasingly acknowledge the labor systems and economic foundations that sustain Mughal architecture. Yet these narratives struggle to compete with the monument's visual authority. Words are fragile in the presence of stone. Context yields easily to spectacle. The Taj Mahal's form continues to dominate its meaning. This imbalance highlights a central challenge of historical memory. Monuments are often preserved precisely because they resist reinterpretation. Their physical permanence stabilizes meaning, making alternative readings feel disruptive rather than illuminating. In the case of the Taj Mahal, to foreground its human cost can appear to diminish its beauty, even when such acknowledgement enriches understanding. This resistance reveals how deeply societies remain invested in inherited hierarchies of value. The monument's influence extends beyond history into contemporary architecture and urban planning. Replicas, references, and appropriations of the Taj Mahal appear in private estates, commercial developments, and public buildings across the world. These imitations rarely carry the burden of historical context. They reproduce form without consequence, symmetry without sacrifice. In doing so, they further abstract the monument from its origins, transforming imperial authority into decorative motif. Yet abstraction does not erase origin. The very appeal of the Taj Mahal as a model lies in its association with absolute command over material and labor. To replicate its form is to gesture toward that command, even unconsciously. The monument thus continues to inform how power imagines itself spatially, reinforcing the idea that control expressed through beauty is more enduring than force expressed through violence. At the same time, the Taj Mahal's survival exposes the fragility of the systems that once sustained it. The Mughal Empire no longer exists. The agrarian economy that funded its construction has been transformed beyond recognition. The court culture that gave the monument its meaning has vanished. What remains is stone, maintained by institutions that reinterpret its purpose while relying on similar principles of prioritization and exclusion. The continuity is structural rather than political. In this sense, the Taj Mahal offers a lesson in how power outlives power. The monument no longer enforces obedience, yet it continues to command attention. It no longer asserts sovereignty, yet it dictates behavior within its boundaries. It no longer serves an emperor, yet it mobilizes resources across nations. The mechanisms have changed, but the outcome remains familiar. The human price of this endurance is often diffuse, difficult to locate, and therefore easy to overlook. It appears in opportunity costs, in regulatory burdens, in labor that remains invisible because it is routine. Gardeners, conservators, security personnel, and service workers sustain the monument's daily life, much as artisans and laborers once sustained its creation. Their work is essential, yet rarely acknowledged as part of the monument's story. The pattern persists. The structure is remembered. The people remain peripheral. To recognize this pattern is not to argue for abandonment or neglect. It is to insist on clarity. Monuments like the Taj Mahal do not simply belong to history, they actively shape it. They influence how societies understand achievement, justify inequality, and assign worth. Their beauty is real, but it is not innocent. It is the product of choices that favored permanence over equity, symbolism over subsistence. As viewers continue to stand before the Taj Mahal, drawn into its calm and order, the monument invites a final, more difficult form of engagement. Not admiration alone, but awareness. Awareness that the stillness they experience is maintained through effort. Awareness that the harmony they perceive was achieved through concentration of power. Awareness that the legacy they inherit includes obligations as well as inspiration. In this awareness lies the possibility of a more honest relationship with the past. The Taj Mahal need not be reduced to a cautionary tale, nor elevated beyond critique. It can be understood as it truly is, a masterpiece of human creation, inseparable from the human systems that produced it. Its marble reflects light without judgment. The judgment belongs to those who choose how to remember, preserve, and explain it. In the final measure, the Taj Mahal endures not because it resolves the contradictions of imperial power, but because it holds them in suspension. Its presence allows societies to contemplate greatness without confronting governance directly, to admire achievement without fully reckoning with distribution. This suspension is comforting. It permits continuity without accountability, reverence without responsibility. The monument's stillness functions as a kind of ethical pause, inviting reflection while discouraging disturbance. Yet history does not pause. The world surrounding the Taj Mahal continues to change, and with each change, the monument acquires new layers of meaning. Environmental pressures intensify, political narratives evolve, and cultural priorities shift. Each generation approaches the structure with different questions, different anxieties, and different forms of distance from the conditions that produced it. The Taj Mahal absorbs these shifts without alteration, remaining outwardly unchanged while serving as a screen upon which contemporary values are projected. This adaptability is one of imperial monumentality's most enduring traits. Structures like the Taj Mahal are resilient precisely because they are incomplete narratives. They do not explain themselves. They invite interpretation while withholding context. This openness allows them to survive ideological transitions that would render more explicit symbols obsolete. The Taj Mahal has been imperial memorial, colonial spectacle, national emblem, and global heritage icon, all without losing its authority. Each role has reactivated the monument's power under new terms. The human price of this adaptability lies in what is normalized. When monuments are treated as neutral inheritances, the systems that enabled them fade into abstraction. The past becomes aesthetic rather than political, instructive rather than accountable. This normalization shapes how future power imagines itself. If the most admired legacies of history are those that concentrated resources most effectively, then concentration itself becomes justified retroactively. Monumentality teaches lessons even when no one is consciously listening. The Taj Mahal's calm authority thus participates in a broader cultural economy of admiration. It rewards scale, precision, and endurance. It elevates outcomes over processes, results over relationships. These values resonate far beyond architecture, influencing how success is measured and remembered in many domains. The monument's legacy is not confined to history books or tourist itineraries. It lives in assumptions about what deserves preservation and what may be allowed to disappear. At the same time, the Taj Mahal offers an opportunity precisely because of its visibility. Its global recognition creates space for reinterpretation, for narratives that reintroduce complexity without diminishing beauty. To speak of labor, cost, and consequence alongside symmetry and light is not to undermine the monument. It is to restore its humanity. The Taj Mahal was built by people, sustained by people, and continues to shape people's lives. To acknowledge this is to honor its reality rather than its myth. The monument's future will depend on choices yet to be made. Decisions about conservation methods, visitor access, and interpretive framing will determine how the Taj Mahal is experienced by generations to come. These decisions are not merely technical, they are ethical. They express what societies believe about the relationship between past achievement and present responsibility. Each act of preservation carries an implicit answer to the question of whether beauty alone is sufficient justification. In confronting that question, the Taj Mahal reveals its final, enduring significance. It is not only a relic of imperial ambition, nor merely an object of universal admiration. It is a continuous test of how humanity engages with its own creations. The monument asks whether reverence can coexist with honesty, whether admiration can include acknowledgement, and whether inheritance can be accompanied by reflection. The Taj Mahal does not demand a verdict. It stands as it always has, offering stillness rather than instruction. The burden of interpretation falls on those who approach it. To see only beauty is easy. To see beauty alongside cost requires patience, humility, and willingness to hold contradiction without resolution. That willingness defines the difference between myth and history. In this way, the Taj Mahal's greatest legacy may not be what it represents, but what it provokes. It invites viewers to consider how power becomes stone, how stone becomes memory, and how memory shapes the future. Its marble remains silent. The responsibility to speak belongs to those who inherit it. When the Taj Mahal is considered at the furthest edge of its historical reach, it becomes clear that its power lies not in what it explains, but in what it normalizes. Over time, the extraordinary becomes ordinary. What once demanded the mobilization of an empire is now encountered casually, filtered through photographs, travel itineraries, and simplified narratives. The monument's exceptional origins fade into the background, replaced by familiarity. This familiarity is not benign. It reshapes moral perception, training societies to accept inherited grandeur without revisiting the conditions under which it was achieved. The Taj Mahal's endurance illustrates how inequality can be rendered invisible through repetition. Each generation encounters the monument already justified by the reverence of the previous one. The question of whether such concentration of resources should have occurred at all is rarely asked, because the result has already been sanctified by time. This is how imperial legacies persist without imperial rule. Authority is transferred from rulers to objects, from command to consensus. In this transfer, memory becomes selective. The Mughal state that produced the Taj Mahal was a complex entity capable of administrative sophistication and cultural synthesis, yet also dependent on rigid hierarchies and extraction. These contradictions are difficult to hold simultaneously, and so they are often separated. The monument absorbs admiration, while the system that enabled it dissolves into abstraction. What remains is a distilled image of achievement, cleansed of friction. This process shapes not only how the past is remembered, but how the future is imagined. Monuments like the Taj Mahal establish benchmarks for what is considered worthy of permanence. They influence architectural ambition, heritage policy, and cultural aspiration. The implicit lesson is that scale and endurance justify cost, that the ability to leave a mark outweighs the means by which that mark is made. This lesson continues to circulate long after its original context has vanished. Yet history also records what monumentality cannot prevent. The Mughal Empire declined. Its administrative structures fractured, its authority dissipated under the pressures of a succession conflict, fiscal strain, and external challenge. The Taj Mahal did not halt this decline, it survived it. In doing so, it demonstrated a crucial asymmetry. Monuments may outlast power, but they do not preserve justice, stability, or balance. They endure as artifacts, not as solutions. This endurance can mislead. The continued presence of the Taj Mahal may suggest continuity where rupture occurred, coherence where fragmentation prevailed. It offers a visual argument for permanence that history does not support. Recognizing this disjunction is essential to understanding the true legacy of imperial monumentality. The monument remains. The system that created it does not. What survives is form, detached from function. The human price of this detachment is subtle but profound. When monuments outlive accountability, they risk becoming vessels for nostalgia rather than understanding. They encourage reverence for outcomes without responsibility for causes. This is not a failure of architecture, but of interpretation. Stone cannot speak. It is given meaning by those who approach it. The Taj Mahal, in its continued silence, leaves space for a different kind of engagement. It allows for admiration that does not excuse, for respect that does not require erasure. To hold the monument in view while also holding the lives and systems that produced it is to resist the simplifications that monumentality invites. It is to accept that beauty and burden can coexist without resolution. As time continues its passage, the Taj Mahal will remain, supported by technologies and institutions Shah Jahan could never have imagined. Its survival will depend on decisions made far removed from its origins, yet shaped by the same underlying logic of prioritization. Each generation will inherit not only the structure, but the choice of how to explain it. That choice will determine whether the monument serves as a closed symbol or an open question. In the end, the Taj Mahal stands as a reminder that history's most admired creations are rarely innocent. They are the residue of human will exercised at scale. To recognize this is not to diminish their significance, but to deepen it. The monument's marble surface reflects the sky without discrimination. The reflection that matters is the one carried forward in human understanding. In the final accounting, the Taj Mahal remains suspended between admiration and inheritance, between reverence and responsibility. It has outlived the empire that conceived it, the dynasty that funded it, and the political systems that once justified its scale. What remains is not power in its original form, but the after-image of power, refined, aestheticized, and largely unquestioned. The monument stands as evidence that authority does not vanish when institutions collapse. It migrates into memory, into culture, into stone. The Taj Mahal's endurance demonstrates how history is curated as much as it is recorded. Each era selects what it will carry forward, and in doing so, shapes the moral landscape of remembrance. The decision to preserve this monument has been repeated countless times under different governments and ideologies, each time reaffirming its exceptional status. These decisions are rarely framed as moral choices, yet they are precisely that. To preserve is to prioritize. To prioritize is to reveal values. This does not mean that preservation is wrong or that admiration is misplaced. The Taj Mahal remains one of humanity's most extraordinary architectural achievements. Its technical precision, aesthetic restraint, and spatial intelligence continue to command respect. But respect need not require silence. The monument's beauty does not diminish when its origins are understood more fully. On the contrary, understanding restores depth to admiration, replacing passive awe with informed reflection. The human price of imperial monumentality, traced through the Taj Mahal's long history, is not a single debt that can be settled or dismissed. It is an accumulation of obligations, economic, social, and interpretive, that persist as long as the monument remains central to collective imagination. Each act of maintenance echoes the labor of its creation. Each controlled pathway recalls the choreography of imperial space. Each simplified narrative repeats the original act of abstraction that transformed human effort into serene form. To confront this reality is to engage in a more mature relationship with the past. It requires resisting the temptation to treat monuments as neutral inheritances, detached from the systems that produce them. It asks viewers to hold multiple truths at once: that the Taj Mahal is a masterpiece, and that it is inseparable from inequality, that it inspires wonder, and that it was made possible by asymmetrical power, that it belongs to humanity, and that its costs have never been evenly shared. The Taj Mahal does not instruct viewers on how to resolve these tensions. It offers no moral closure. Its marble remains silent, its symmetry undisturbed. The responsibility lies with those who interpret, preserve, and transmit its meaning. Whether the monument becomes a closed icon or an open historical inquiry depends on the willingness to move beyond reverence alone. In this sense, the Taj Mahal's greatest legacy may be its capacity to provoke ethical attention across time. It asks, without words, how societies choose to remember power once it no longer rules, and how they justify the endurance of symbols born from inequality. The answers to these questions are never fixed. They evolve with each generation that stands before the reflecting pool, confronted by beauty that conceals as much as it reveals. The Taj Mahal will likely continue to stand for centuries to come, its marble renewed, its gardens disciplined, its image reproduced endlessly. Its survival is assured not by stone alone, but by human choice. That choice carries weight. To inherit such a monument is to inherit not only its splendor, but its history, complete, unresolved, and demanding of thought.